The Wild West Revolver. Symbol of power, freedom, and survival. We've seen it fire lightning fast in dusty duels and decide fates with a single pull of the trigger. But the truth is far less romantic. These guns weren't perfect machines. They were unpredictable creations, shaped by human hands and plagued by flaws. Each one had its own quirks, its own temperament, and sometimes its own betrayal.
Appears to do, yes.
Today, we're pulling back the hammer on history to expose the real story behind the six-shooter and the 11 myths that built its legend. Number 11, the assembly line. Lie. Hollywood sold you a fantasy. Rows of identical revolvers, rolling off an assembly line, each one a perfect twin of the last. But if you could go back and hold one of those legendary six-shooters fresh from the factory floor, you'd feel something immediately wrong. You grip the walnut handle, and your fingers notice it first. The weight distribution is off by just enough to matter. This wasn't stamped out by a machine. This was shaped by human hands. In the 1870s, when America was stitching itself back together after the Civil War, Colt's factory in Hartford wasn't churning out precision instruments. It was a forge where craftsmen hand-fitted every piece of metal, filing down cylinders, adjusting hammers, smoothing triggers. Each revolver was essentially custom work, disguised as mass production. Parts were individually shaped to fit together, creating a weapon that, when everything aligned, could become legendary in the right hands. But that's the curse. No two guns were truly identical. Some cylinders rotated like silk, others caught and dragged. Some triggers broke crisp at 8 pounds, others ground through 12. Your barrel might shoot 2 inches left. Your partners might shoot dead center. A gunfighter didn't just buy a gun. He auditioned dozens, searching for the one that wouldn't betray him. When heartbeats mattered more than seconds, that personal bond between man and weapon, that intimate knowledge of exactly how your gun would behave, was the real edge. Not the brand name, not the caliber. The marriage of flesh and imperfect metal. But if every gun was a unique beast with its own temperament, surely there was one feature Hollywood got right. Number 10, the hair trigger myth. You've seen it 1,000 times. The hero's finger barely grazes the trigger, and crack, instant thunder. They told you these were hair trigger machines, so sensitive a deep breath could set them off. You wrap your hand around an authentic peacemaker and pull, and nothing happens. You pull harder, still nothing. You're straining now, using muscles in your hand you didn't know existed. And finally, boom! 12 pounds of pressure later, the hammer drops. When Colt designed the single-action army in 1873, America's frontier was a brutal teacher. Guns were dropped in mud, slammed against saddle horns, jostled in hasty draws. The last thing anyone needed was a revolver that fired when you sneezed. That heavy trigger wasn't a flaw, it was intentional salvation. 8 to 12 pounds of deliberate, unforgiving resistance stood between you and an accidental discharge. In a land where guns lived in holsters through desert heat and mountain frost, where men climbed and fell and scrambled and fought, that heavy trigger was the thin line between controlled violence and catastrophic mistake. But here's what the dime novels never told you. That heavy pull destroyed speed. Under stress, when your hands were shaking and your opponent was drawing, you had to commit to that trigger. No feather touch, no gentle squeeze, you had to mean it. And if you didn't have the grip strength or the muscle memory, your gun betrayed you in the only moment that mattered. The professional gunfighters knew they didn't want light triggers. They wanted triggers they could trust. Yet even with the right trigger pull, there was another enemy lurking in every chamber. If you're enjoying uncovering the truth behind the legend, make sure to subscribe, because we've only just started pulling the trigger on history. Number 9. The ammunition illusion. Pull the trigger, bang. Pull again, bang. Simple, right? Hollywood trained you to believe ammunition was just there. Reliable as gravity, consistent as sunrise. You load 6 brass cartridges into the cylinder and spin it shut. But you don't know which ones are dead. Neither did they. The 1870s were the dawn of metallic cartridges. A revolution that promised to transform warfare. Black powder packed into brass shells, topped with lead bullets, sealed with percussion caps. On paper, it was genius. In practice, it was gambling with your life. These cartridges represented freedom from the tedious ritual of cap and ball loading. No more measuring powder, ramming bullets, seating caps. Just load and shoot. The future had arrived, or so they thought. But black powder was temperamental, almost malicious. Too little powder, and your bullet might not even exit the barrel. A squib load that could explode the gun on your next shot. Too much, and you risked blowing the cylinder apart. Moisture, forget it. One damp cartridge, and you had a useless click when you needed a life-saving bang. The primers themselves were fragile things, easily crushed in a saddlebag, rendering cartridges into paperweights. Manufacturing quality control didn't exist. Same box, different performances, roulette in brass. Smart men carried backup guns, not because they were paranoid, but because they were experienced. They'd felt that sick click in a moment of truth. They'd seen men die because their ammunition decided to take a nap. But even when the ammunition fired, what it actually accomplished might shock you. Number 8. The one-shot drop delusion. You watch a man take a .45 slug to the chest and he doesn't drop. He charges and you realize the movies lied about everything. In the 1870s, the .45 Colt cartridge was designed as a military round, meant to stop enemy combatants. The Army wanted power. Colt delivered a heavy lead bullet, over 250 grains, moving at modest velocity. That big, slow projectile created deep wound channels, devastating soft tissue, breaking bones. On paper, it was a man-stopper. The math suggested one shot should end the fight, but human beings don't read ballistics charts. They run on adrenaline, rage, and survival instinct. Unless that bullet struck the brain or spine, and with crude sights and shaking hands, good luck with that. A wounded man could keep fighting for minutes. Historical accounts are filled with men who took 3, 4, 5 bullets and still returned fire. The psychological effect was often more powerful than the physical damage. Some men collapsed from shock at being shot, even when the wound wasn't fatal. Others fought like cornered animals until blood loss finally shut down their bodies. Gunfighters learned the terrible truth. Shooting someone doesn't mean stopping them. It means starting a countdown. And if that countdown ran longer than yours, you died holding a smoking gun, confused why your perfect shot didn't end the threat. Which brings us to an even more fundamental problem with these legendary weapons. Number 7. The precision fantasy. Picture the scene. 50 yards away, a playing card. The gunslinger draws, fires, and the card spins through the air, punched clean through the center. You aim at a man-sized target at 50 yards, and your bullet hits 3 feet to the left. And you realize you're holding a point and hope machine, not a precision instrument. In the age of Wild West shows, exhibition shooters like Annie Oakley performed miracles with firearms. They used specially prepared ammunition, modified weapons, and years of dedicated practice. Audiences assumed everyone could shoot like that. The Colt single-action army had a functional sight system, a small blade up front, a groove filed into the frame for a rear. For close-range work, hitting a man at 10 feet, it was adequate. But adequate at 10 feet doesn't translate to accurate at 50 yards. The short barrel, the crude sights, the hand-fitted tolerances that varied gun to gun, all of it conspired against precision. Worse, black powder ammunition was wildly inconsistent. Powder charges varied, bullet weights fluctuated. Your gun might shoot dead on with one batch and 4 inches high with the next. Every shooter had to learn their specific weapon's personality, where it liked to shoot, not where the sights suggested. That knowledge was hard-won through hundreds of practice rounds most frontiersmen couldn't afford. Real gunfights happened at distances you could spit, under 20 feet, sometimes across a card table, because professionals understood their weapons' limits. Long-range precision was the domain of rifles, not revolvers. And if accuracy was a problem, try doing it under pressure while reloading. Number 6, the reload myth. You fumble with the loading gate and realize you're dead. 30 seconds into a process that takes 60 seconds minimum, and your enemy just shot you twice. By 1873, other revolver designs existed with faster reload systems. Smith & Wesson's top break models could eject all 6 spent cartridges at once with a simple lever. But the Army chose Colt's design for its strength and simplicity. The Colt's solid frame made it nearly indestructible. That single-action mechanism was robust, reliable, and could take punishment that would break lesser guns. But you paid for that strength with speed, or the lack thereof. To reload, you had to bring the hammer to half cock, open the loading gate, manually push out each spent cartridge one at a time with the ejector rod. 6 separate actions just to empty the gun. Then you had to align fresh cartridges with each chamber, one by one, insert them, close the gate, and cock the hammer. The entire process demanded both hands, fine motor control, and time. Luxuries you absolutely did not have while someone was shooting at you. This is why photographs of Old West gunfighters often show them wearing 2 guns. Not for dual-wielding action hero nonsense, but for the New York reload. When your first gun runs dry, draw the second. Because reloading during combat wasn't practical, it was suicidal. Yet despite these limitations, surely these weapons were built like tanks. Number 5, the Indestructible legend. The gunslinger drops his Colt in the dirt, kicks it across rocks, fires it underwater, and it never misses a beat. Indestructible, eternal, unbreakable. You watch a grain of sand jam the cylinder, and the gun becomes a paperweight, and you understand why gunsmiths existed. Compared to earlier percussion revolvers, the Colt single-action Army was robust. Its solid frame design was genuinely stronger than older open-top models. Marketing emphasized this reliability, and in an era of questionable manufacturing, Colt's reputation for quality mattered. The SAA could take legitimate abuse. It survived cavalry charges, ranch work, and frontier hardship that would destroy most mechanical devices. Its relatively simple mechanism, fewer parts meant fewer failure points, contributed to genuine durability. But durable for 1873 isn't the same as indestructible. This was a precision mechanism with tight tolerances. The cylinder had to rotate and lock perfectly with each shot. Springs had to maintain tension. The ejector rod couldn't bend. Get sand in the action, and that cylinder might not turn. Drop it, and a small internal spring could break, turning your 6-shooter into a club. Black powder was corrosive, eating at metal if you didn't clean thoroughly after each use. Temperature extremes warped parts. Metal expanded in heat, contracted in cold, and those tiny changes meant your reliable gun might suddenly malfunction at the worst possible moment. Experienced frontiersmen developed obsessive cleaning rituals. They carried spare parts. They knew their weapons' warning signs, unusual sounds, sticky actions, resistance where there should be smoothness. But even a well-maintained gun couldn't save you from Hollywood's most dangerous lie. Number 4, the fanning fallacy. Outnumbered, surrounded. The hero holds his revolver at hip level and rapidly slaps the hammer. Bang, 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 bang. 5 shots in under 2 seconds. 5 enemies dropped. You try fanning and every bullet goes somewhere except where you aimed, and now you're empty. Your gun is damaged, and you're about to die. In the 1920s, exhibition shooter Ed McGivern achieved genuine fame by firing 5 shots in 1.1 seconds while fanning, hitting a hand-sized target. But McGivern used modified weapons, carefully prepared ammunition, and he was shooting at stationary targets that weren't shooting back. Fanning was real. You held the trigger down and repeatedly slapped the hammer back with your offhand. The cylinder rotated, the hammer dropped, the gun fired as fast as you could fan. In theory, you transformed a 6-shooter into something resembling a machine pistol. But theory and reality diverged violently. The technique destroyed accuracy. The gun jarred and bucked with each shot, making controlled aim impossible. At any distance beyond arm's reach, you'd be lucky to hit a barn. Worse, fanning brutalized the gun's internal mechanism. The hammer, trigger, and cylinder stop weren't designed for rapid, violent manipulation. After extended fanning, parts wore out or broke, leaving you with a broken weapon. And perhaps most damning, professional gunfighters despised it. Wyatt Earp reportedly said he never knew a competent gunfighter who didn't have contempt for fanning. Fanning belonged to Wild West shows and exhibition shooters. In actual combat, where every bullet was precious and accuracy meant survival, only a fool wasted ammunition on spray and pray theatrics. But surely, the ammunition itself delivered legendary stopping power. Number 3, the horse-stopping lie. The cavalry horse charges at full gallop. 1,500 pounds of muscle and momentum. The hero aims his Colt, fires once, and the massive animal crashes to the earth, stopped cold by the legendary 45 Colt cartridge. You shoot a charging horse and it keeps running, and you realize you brought the wrong gun for the job. In the 1870s, buffalo hunters used massive single-shot rifles, firing cartridges like the 50-70 and 45-70, enormous bullets with tremendous powder charges. Those rounds could drop a buffalo, which weighed as much as a large horse. Somehow, in the public imagination, the capabilities of those rifles merged with revolver cartridges. The 45 Colt was actually a sensible military round. Its 250-grain bullet hit hard enough to be lethal to humans while maintaining manageable recoil. Soldiers could control it, practice with it, and carry substantial ammunition without being weighed down. But lethal to humans and instantly stops large animals are different requirements entirely. A horse has tremendous mass and incredible momentum when running. Even a fatal shot might not immediately stop forward motion. The animal could run another 100 yards before collapsing. The 45 Colt simply lacked the energy needed for instant incapacitation of large targets. Military records showed that stopping determined attackers, even human ones, often required multiple hits. The idea that one shot from a revolver could drop a charging horse wasn't just optimistic, it was fantasy. This myth reveals Hollywood's greatest deception, confusing lethality with stopping power. Yes, the 45 Colt could kill a horse, eventually. But in the seconds it took for that animal to die, it covered a lot of ground. Which leads us to an even more fundamental deception about these weapons. Number 2, the perfect aim illusion. The gunfighter lines up his sights with surgical precision. The notch, the blade, the target, perfect alignment. He squeezes the trigger and the bullet goes exactly where the sights indicated. You aim dead center and your bullet impacts 4 inches low and 2 inches left. And you realize the sights are lying to you. In modern firearms manufacturing, tolerances are measured in thousandths of an inch. Computer-controlled machinery ensures parts align perfectly. In 1873, precision meant close enough that a skilled craftsman could make it work. The SAA's sights were simple and robust, a small blade front sight, and a groove in the top strap for a rear. No adjustments needed, no delicate mechanisms to break. Mount them, file them down, and ship it. But simple meant approximate. Your barrel might not be perfectly straight. It might not align perfectly with the frame. The sights themselves were crudely positioned. These tolerances meant each individual gun had its own unique point of impact. Your revolver might shoot 2 inches low. Your brother's might shoot dead center. Someone else's might shoot right. You couldn't adjust the sights to compensate. You had to learn through extensive practice exactly where your gun hit, then aim accordingly. Add in the variables of ammunition, different powder charges, bullet weights, and manufacturing inconsistencies. And you had a weapon that required intimate knowledge to use effectively. This created a strange truth. An experienced shooter with a bad gun could outshoot a novice with a perfect gun. Because the real weapon wasn't the hunk of metal, it was the knowledge in the shooter's mind. But all of these myths pale compared to the biggest lie ever told about these weapons. Number 1, the gun that won the West. They called it the Peacemaker, the Equalizer, the gun that won the West. The legend says this single revolver model was so superior, so dominant, that it conquered an entire frontier. You look at the actual numbers and realize you've been sold a marketing slogan disguised as history, and the truth is far more interesting. The slogan was created decades after the frontier closed by manufacturers who understood that mythology sells better than reality. By the 1920s and 30s, when Western films were becoming popular, Colt needed to associate their aging revolver design with American folklore. Don't misunderstand, the Colt single-action army was a legitimate achievement. Its solid frame design was stronger than earlier models. Its .45 Colt chambering hit hard. Its ergonomics were good for the era. The U.S. Army adopted it in 1873 and used it for nearly 2 decades. Real gunfighters, from Wyatt Earp to John Wesley Hardin, carried it. But it was never dominant. After the Civil War, surplus military weapons flooded the market at a fraction of a new Colt's price. Many frontiersmen carried whatever they could afford: older percussion revolvers, competitor brands, captured firearms. Smith & Wesson offered revolvers with faster reloads. For many purposes, shotguns were more effective. Rifles had better range. Regional preferences varied wildly. What was popular in Texas differed from Montana or California. And by the 1890s, double-action revolvers were replacing single actions. The real story of the West was won by dozens of different weapons, wielded by diverse people in diverse situations, making practical choices based on what they could afford and what worked for their specific needs. The true stories behind these legends reveal a frontier that was more complex, more dangerous, and more human than Hollywood ever showed us. These weren't perfect weapons wielded by flawless heroes. They were imperfect tools used by desperate people trying to survive an unforgiving land. Which of these myths surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're hungry for more truth behind the legends, hit that subscribe button. There's a whole frontier of myths waiting to be busted.